We have been studying about struts and columns, and we have already seen the two cases wherein the struts or these columns can fail. One is under crushing load, one is when the columns are subjected to the eccentric load. Now we have started discussing about these long columns which may fail under buckling, right? And we have in the last video we have also seen the stability of these columns. We had obtained the expression when we simplify these columns with the help of two rigid members and a spring of constant K. Now in this video we will try to develop the critical loads for these different types of columns, for these different boundary conditions. We will try to develop the Euler's critical load. Alright, so these are our different columns which are with different boundary condition, and let us straight away first take this condition wherein both the ends are hinged. So we will now try to develop the Euler's critical load for first case when the column is hinged at both the ends. So what we'll do is we'll consider that the deformation or the deflection is y at some distance x from this end A. So we will assume that at this distance x the deformation is y at some random distance x, the deformation is y. Then we know that by the bending moment equation, by the bending moment equation or the equation of beam, we have this EI d square y by dx square. This should be equal to bending moment. Now in this case the bending moment will be this P, that is the applied load P, multiplied by this deflection y, and the sign here will be minus because as this x is increasing this deflection will decrease, it will go on decreasing, therefore we have this minus sign. Now if I just readjust these terms, I will get this EI d square y by dx square plus py, will get this as 0, right? We'll get this as 0. So and then further if I just simplify this, I will get this d square y by dx square plus p divided by EI times y is equal to 0. Now this is nothing but the differential equation of this case when when this column, this long column of length L is subjected, I mean it is when it is hinged to both the ends, end A and end B. And then the solution to this differential equation, the solution to above differential equation will be of the form y is equal to C1 cos of x root of P divided by EI plus C2 sine x times root of P divided by EI. Now when I say this is the solution of this differential equation, this is a very general solution, and if I want to find the particular solution for this case, then we will have to evaluate these two constants C1 and C2, where the C1 and C2 are constants of integration. And the way I can evaluate these two constants C1 and C2 is by using two boundary conditions. Now if you observe here carefully at this column, if you observe this column carefully, we have the two boundary conditions with us. And what are those two boundary conditions? So in this case, boundary conditions are at x equal to 0, we have this deflection or the deformation y is 0. Yes, at x equal to 0, this deflection is 0 here, right? There is no deflection at all at x equal to 0. Now if I use this boundary condition in this equation, what I will get is, I will get this y is 0, right? Y is 0. So basically I'll get this as 0 equal to C1 times, since x is 0, this term cos of 0 will become 1 plus C2 times, since x is 0, sine of 0 will become 0. What this tells us is that C1 is 0. So basically this first constant of integration C1 turns out to be 0, and therefore I will get now my new solution as C2 sine x root p by EI. But then again there is this second integration, constant of integration, that is C2, and the way we will evaluate the value of this C2 is by taking the help of second boundary condition, that is at x equal to L. Observe what happens when x is L. When this x becomes equal to L, again we have this y as 0 at point B, right? So therefore again we will have this y to be 0. Now what does this implies is, this should be equal to 0, should be equal to C2 times sine of L root of P divided by EI. Now this is what we get. But from here, from this equation, can this C2 be 0? It cannot be 0, right? Because if both C1 and C2 is 0, that means basically there is no deflection at all. This y will be equal to 0, which is not true. There is some deflection, right? So this C2 cannot be 0. So C2 cannot be equal to 0 because in that case in that case in that case y will be equal to 0, which is not true. Therefore the only thing here that can be 0 in order to satisfy this equation is the sine of L root P divided by EI, right? This should be equal to 0 because C2 cannot be 0, and if I want to balance this equation, then that means this term should be equal to 0. Since this term is equal to 0, when this sine of some angle can be 0, when that angle, this angle is either equal to what? This angle should be either equal to 0, or it can be equal to pi, or it can be equal to 2 pi, or it can be equal to 3 pi, and so on. So all these angles with 0 and pi and multiples of pi, we will get this value as 0. So basically we can also write this as this term will be equal to 0, this term will be equal to 0 when this angle is n pi, when where this n goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. But the minimum value for which the minimum value of n, the minimum non-zero value of n for which this will be equal to 0 is at n equal to 1, right? The minimum non-zero value of n when this term will be equal to 0 is 1. So therefore what we can say is, what we can say is L root of P divided by EI, this will be equal to pi, because the value of n, the minimum non-zero value of n when this term will be equal to 0 is n equal to 1. So if I substitute this n is equal to 1, I get this term. And then if I just square it on both the sides, if I just square it on both the side, I will get this as L square times P divided by EI is equal to pi square. So that means now whatever this expression will get for P, that is pi square EI divided by L square. Now this term is nothing but it is the this load will be called as the critical load, and this load will be critical load for not all kinds of column but only for this column when it will be hinged at both the ends. So this is the expression for the critical load or buckling load, right? So this load is called as critical load or buckling load. Similarly, we can find the expression of the critical load for other cases. The other cases are like one end is fixed and the other end is free. If I take this as our second case, wherein this end is fixed whereas other end is free. So what we'll do is we'll do same thing. What we'll do is we will say that this deformation, let the deformation at some distance x from the fixed end, let it be y. So we are saying at some distance x from the fixed end, the deformation is y. And this extreme, at the deformation, the maximum deformation at the free end, let it be equal to a. So at end B, let the deformation or the deflection be a, which is nothing but the maximum deflection at x equal to L. Alright. Now again what we can do is, we can write the equation of bending moment. So in this case the equation of bending moment will be equal to EI d square y by dx square should be equal to m, as we all know. But in this case this bending moment will be equal to p times a minus y, where this a is what? A is this maximum deflection at its free end. And the sign will be positive because as this x is increasing, this y is continuously increasing along with x. So in this case this sign will be definitely positive. So if I now rewrite this equation, I will get this as EI d square y by dx square plus py is equal to pa. Now in earlier equation, what had happened is, this side on the right hand side it was 0, right? So further if I just divide this equation, entire equation by EI, I will get this as P by EI y is equal to PA divided by EI. Now earlier in our earlier equation here, this right hand side was equal to 0, otherwise the equation was same, but on the right hand side there were no terms. This was equal to 0. But now for this case, when it is fixed at one end and it is free at other end, we are not getting this right hand side as 0, but there is this term P divided by EI multiplied by A. And therefore when we have this extra term a here on the right hand side, the solution for this differential equation will become, the solution for above differential equation will be y will be equal to C1 cos of x root p divided by EI. Then again there will be C2 term, and this time it will be sine times x divided multiplied by root of p divided by EI, and then there will be plus a term now, because here now right hand side along with this term we have a term here, right? So that we'll have to add it here. And then further this C1 and C2 are the constants of integration, which we will have to evaluate using the boundary conditions. Now what are boundary conditions here in this case? The boundary conditions are at x equal to 0, I know that this deformation or the deflection y is equal to 0, right? At x equal to 0, y is 0. And then also the second boundary condition will be at x equal to 0, at x equal to 0, the boundary condition which we have is the slope is also 0. If you remember from our beams, knowledge of beams, whenever the end is fixed at that location along with the deflection, the slope is also 0, right? Because it starts taking the curvature from slightly beyond this fixed point A. Therefore here even the slope is 0, the rate of change of deflection is also 0. So therefore we have this dy by dx, which is slope, is also equal to 0. Now since we require here dy by dx along with y, what we will do is first let us take the first derivative of this y and check what we will get. So dy by dx, this will be equal to minus C1 root P divided by EI. Cos or derivative of cos is sine, right? So it will be sine times x root P divided by EI. Plus we also have this now C2. So this C2 root of P divided by EI. Derivative of sine will be cos x root P divided by EI. And then this, since this a term is constant, it will just disappear like that. And therefore now if I take the help of this boundary condition here, at x equal to 0, this dy by dx is equal to 0, that means this will be 0 when x is equal to 0. So when x is equal to 0, this term will just disappear like that, and then finally we will get here this as C2 root of P divided by EI. But can this value root of P divided by EI, can it be 0? No, this term cannot be equal to 0, which only implies that C2 will be equal to 0, which only implies that C2 will be equal to 0. So from our second boundary condition, we have got this C2 as 0. So since C2 is 0, I can rewrite this now differential equation again. That is the y will be equal to C1 cos of x multiplied by root of p divided by EI plus a. At this stage, we will take the help of this boundary condition, that is this y is 0 at x equal to 0. If that is the case, then we will get this as 0 when x is 0. If x is 0, this will become 1. So this will become 1 plus a. Therefore, we get this C1 as minus of a. And since we get this C1 as minus of a, I can rewrite this expression, the solution in terms of y as a, which is this a, and C1 is minus of a times cos of x root of p divided by EI. But then we had said that the maximum deflection is a at x equal to L, that is at free end the maximum deflection is a. So further we can take the help of even that boundary condition, that is at x equal to L we have this deformation y as a. This will give us, this will become a is equal to a minus a times cos of x multiplied by root of p divided by EI. Now here this a is there on both the sides, is on this side as well as on this side. So finally from here what we will get is that this a times cos of x root p divided by EI, this should be equal to 0. But here a cannot be equal to 0 because a is the maximum deflection at the free end. So therefore this will imply what, that it can happen, this equation can become equal to 0 only if this term cos of x root of p divided by EI, only if this term becomes equal to 0. And when this can be equal to 0, if I'm sorry, this x should be L, right? Here x should be equal to L because at x equal to L we get this y as a. So this term should be equal to L, even this term should be equal to L. So therefore This what it tells us is this term L divided by root of P divided by EI. This can be equal to pi by 2, or it can be equal to 3 pi by 2, or it can be equal to 5 pi by 2, and so on. So if we consider again the least significant value, that is this term, I will get this p critical as pi square ei divided by, again the square of this 2 will become 4, and then here L square. So this is the critical load formula a for a column which is fixed at one end and free at other end. Let me write that critical formula again here. This we have obtained that the critical formula here, critical load formula, will be equal to pi square ei divided by 4 times L square. So this is the critical load when the column is fixed at one end and it is totally free at the other end. So this is the Euler's critical load formula when the column is fixed at one end and it is free at other end. Let us now go to the third case wherein both the ends are fixed. Now in this case both these ends are fixed, right? At end equal to at end A and at end B, both the ends are fixed, and for the applied load P, this side there will be a reaction force P again, and then it is this column is a long column which is of length L, and our approach will be again same. What we will do is at some distance x from this end, from end A, we will say that let this deformation be, or the deflection be y. At some distance x from this end A, let the deflection be y. Here one more thing you all must have noticed, that since both the ends are fixed, end A as well as end B, both the ends are fixed, there is bending moment, extra bending moment which has developed here, and let that be equal to m naught. All right. So this is getting developed here because both the ends are fixed on this side as well as this side. So therefore the bending moment equation here will be ei d square y by dx square will be equal to m naught, that is this bending moment, minus there will be the actual bending moment which will be p times y, and we know why it is minus, because as x is increasing, this deflection y will go on decreasing. So that argument remains same, but here only thing is it will become, here we will have one extra term m naught because both the ends are fixed, which was not there when both the ends were hinged. So if I just rewrite this equation again, I can rewrite this equation as d square y by dx square. This will be equal to, this will be plus, if I bring this p this side, I will have to divide it by ei times y, and it will be equal to m naught divided by ei. Now this is our differential equation here. This is the differential equation when a column is fixed on both the ends. And the solution to this differential equation will be, solution to the above differential equation will be y equal to c1 cos of x multiplied by root of p divided by ei, which remains same like last time, plus there will be c2 sine term, which is again same, p divided root of p divided by ei. But here now again what will be extra is, since we have this m naught term, I will have to add this m naught and I will have to divide it by p. So now this becomes the general solution of this differential equation. Now since it is fixed, this column is fixed at both the ends, there will be definitely one of the boundary conditions wherein it will be fixed, there we will take the help of the slopes. So therefore why not to differentiate this equation right now itself. So if I differentiate this solution once with respect to x, I will get this as minus c1, then this inside term which will be p divided by ei, cos will become sine times x root of p by ei, plus this will become c2, and then again root of p by ei times this will become, the sine will become cos term multiplied by x multiplied by root of p divided by ei. All right, so we have got the expression, the solution in terms of deflection. Also we have got now the solution in terms of slopes. Now at this stage we shall take the help of boundary conditions. And what are boundary conditions? Since we have already differentiated this y and we have obtained the slope, first let us take the boundary condition in terms of slope itself. That is, at x equal to 0 at this end here, at x equal to 0, we have what? At x equal to 0 we have dy by dx equal to 0, and since dy by dx equal to 0, which tells us that this term dy by dx will be 0 when at x equal to 0. So if I substitute this x as 0 here, sine of 0 will be 0. So this will be basically, this term will be c1 multiplied by 0 plus c2 root of p divided by ei. And what is cos of 0? Cos of 0 will be 1. Of course, here also there will be this term root of p divided by ei, but since this term is 0, anyways nothing will matter here, this entire term will be cancelled out. Now this basically implies that, see, this implies what? Now since this root of p divided by ei cannot be 0, it will be some number, definitely it will be some number, right? So therefore what is 0 here? Only c2 can be equal to 0, only then this equation will be satisfied, right? So from this first boundary condition we get this c2 as 0. Let us take the second boundary condition. Now, what is our second boundary condition? The second boundary condition tells us that at x equal to 0, also what is 0? Y is 0, right? At x equal to 0, y is 0. But C2 is 0. So, what will be y now? This y, which is equal to 0, this y should be equal to what? Since C2 is 0, it will be cos of x root of p divided by ei. C2 is 0 plus this will be m naught by p. But now from this boundary condition, what it tells us that y is 0 when x is 0, right? So this will become 0 plus m naught by p. Therefore, what this implies is that this C1 is minus m naught by p. Now since this C1 is minus m naught by p, I can substitute it back in this equation, and then finally I will get a particular solution for this problem as y will be equal to minus m naught by p cos of x root p divided by ei plus m naught by p. And then we can further simplify this. The way we will simplify is that we will take the help of one more boundary condition, that is at x equal to L. What happens at x equal to L? At x equal to L, this y should be again equal to 0, right? At x equal to L, this y should be again equal to 0. If that is the case, then here if I substitute this boundary condition in this equation, what I will get is this will be 0 minus m naught by p cos of this x is L, right? X is L root of p divided by ei plus m naught by p. So almost we have taken the help of all the boundary conditions. Now this tells us what? This tells us that cos of L root p divided by ei, this will be equal to 1, right? Because if I take this term on the left hand side and then I will have here m naught by p, this side also m naught by p, which will cancel and it will become 1. So finally I get this. Now when this is true when this angles which is there within the cos, that is this angle, should be either equal to what? Should be this cos of what angle R1? It should be either equal to 0 or it should be equal to 2 pi or it should be equal to 4 pi and so on. Now again taking the least non-zero value, if I just take the least non-zero value, from here we will get that this L root of p by ei, this will be equal to 2 pi, which will imply that this p turns out to be 4 pi square ei divided by L square. So now this becomes the critical load when the boundary conditions are what? When both the ends are fixed. That time we got this critical load, which, let me write it here. We got this critical load as 4 pi square ei divided by L square. So this is the critical load when both the ends are fixed. So we have solved, or we have found the Euler's critical load for the three cases. Let us now go straight away to the last case, that is one end is fixed and the other end is hinged. So this is the fourth and the final case of this long columns, when one end is fixed and the other end is hinged. So in this case what we will do is again same thing. We will consider one let us say at some distance x from this fixed end, let this deformation or the deflection be y, again same thing. But now here, since this one end is fixed and the other end is hinged, therefore again there will be the bending moment, resisting bending moment m naught, which will be generated here, and there will be no horizontal reaction forces also in this case. All right, so therefore what we will say is, let m naught be the bending moment, be the end moment, at end A. All right, and what is H? H is the horizontal forces which gets developed. H is the horizontal force which will be equal to m naught divided by L. All right, this H will be equal to this m naught divided by L. And therefore now the differential equation here will be slightly different from the other cases. That is, now the differential equation will be ei d square y by dx square will be equal to h times L minus x minus p y. This term we had, now this gets developed because of this bending moment, because of this end moment there will be horizontal reaction force H, and because of that there will be this term also in this case. Now if I just readjust these terms, again if I divide this equation throughout by ei and bring this term py on the left hand side, I will get this as d square y by dx square plus p divided by ei times y. Now this will be equal to h times L minus x divided by ei. Now to obtain the solution of this differential equation, we will get the solution of this form. The solution will be y equal to c1 cos of x root of p divided by ei, which we know, right? This term is always there. Plus there will be c2 sine of x root of p divided by ei, which is again like previous terms. Plus here what will be extra is this h times L minus x divided by p. Now this term will be extra. This term divided by p. Now this term will be extra here, and therefore now let us straight away find the slope, that is dy by dx. This should be equal to minus c1 root of p divided by ei. In place of cos it will become sine times x root of p divided by ei, plus there will be c2 root of p divided by ei, and then in place of sine we will have cos, it will be x root of p divided by ei. And here since there is x term, again what we will get is minus h divided by p. So now at this stage let us start taking the help of boundary conditions one by one. So at x equal to 0, we know that dy by dx, this should be equal to 0. Now this, when this dy by dx is equal to 0, that means what? This term will be equal to 0 when x is 0. So this will be minus c1. If I substitute here x as 0, it will become sine of 0 as 0. So this will be root of p by ei times 0, plus this will become c2 root of p by ei, and cos of 0 is 1, right? So it will be 1 and this term will remain as it is. So from here we get that this term will be 0. We get what? C2 is equal to h by p. We will get the C2 equal to h by p ei root of ei by p. So this is what we get now here. This we get this C2 as this term. And then we also have this boundary condition, right? At x equal to 0, this y is 0. Here at x equal to 0, this y is 0. The deformation here is 0. So therefore what it means is that this term will be 0, equal to x is 0. So cos of 0 is 1. So therefore this will become c1 plus sine of 0 is 0. So this term will disappear, plus this is 0. So I will get here h times L divided by p. And therefore I will get this c1 as what? I will get this c1 as minus hl divided by p. So we have got now the value of c1 and c2, right? Once we know this value of c1 and c2, let us take now the last boundary condition, that is at x equal to L, we again have this y as 0, right? Here the slope is not equal to 0, but we know for sure that the deflection is 0, right? At this end the deflection will be 0. So therefore what we can do is, now we know what is the value of c1 and c2. So in place of y, we will substitute it as 0. In case of y, we will substitute it as 0, equal to, we'll write this term c1 as it is, c1 as it is, then cos of x will be what? L, right? X is L here. So this will become L root of p divided by ei. Then there will be this plus c2 sine of again L root of p divided by ei. But how much will be this last term here at x equal to L? If I substitute this x as L, this will become 0, right? This will become 0. So this term will disappear. So from here what we get is, if I just take the ratios of these terms, what I will get, if I just take this term this side, and if I divide it, I will get it as 10, right? So 10 of L root of P by EI, this will give me this term minus C1 by C2. What I am saying is, just take this term this side, it will become minus, then you can take this cos, divide this sine by this cos, divide this c1 by this c2, and finally we will get this equation. Now if I substitute here what is c1 and what is c2, what is c1? C1 we had got it as minus HL by P, right? C1 is minus HL divided by P, and what we had got, the C2 term, we had got it as H divided by P root of EI by P. Now this minus and minus sign will cancel out, this H and this H will cancel out, this P and this P will cancel out, and finally we will get this term as L root of EI by P. So here basically what has happened is, we are getting this term tan of some angle is equal to that same angle, and when usually this happen is, if this term is in radians, okay. For example, if I say tan of, now see my values of angles are in radians. Now usually if we say tan of 2, we will get the value as something different, minus 2 or something. But if we try one more value, we'll try tan of 4, we will get this value as something different. But how we want here is, tan of some value is equal to that same value, and that is possible only for one value, that is when tan is equal to 4.4935 approximately. When this tan is equal to 4.4935, I will get that same value, approximately same value, up to 2 digit at least, right? So tan of this value is approximately the same value when it is in radians. So therefore this can happen only when this term L root of P divided by EI is equal to this value, that is 4.4935, 4.4935, all right. Or else from here I can now even find this P, this P critical, P critical will be approximately equal to 20.1915 EI by L square. So again I can write this as P critical as 2 times, approximately this will be 2 times pi square EI, 2 times pi square EI, this will be 2 times pi square EI divided by L square. Okay, so this is how we find the critical load for a column which is fixed at one end and hinged at one end. So let me write that formula again here. The critical load formula, when this column is fixed at one end and it is hinged at one end, the critical load formula will be approximately equal to, this will be the approximate value, it will be equal to 2 times pi square EI divided by L square. All right. So we have found the critical load formula, Euler's critical load formula for all the 4 different cases of these columns. Just to summarize whatever things we have done by a term called as effective length. All right. Now we had seen that the critical load formula for both end hinged, it comes to this pi square EI by L square. We had got this PCR, that is the critical load formula, sometimes also called as crippling load. We had got it as this. This value we had got it as pi square EI by 4L square. when both ends are fixed, we had got critical load formula is this, and just now we saw that when one end is fixed and other end is hinged, we got the critical load formula is this. All right. Now what we can do is we can write the effective length formula. I mean the effective length formula like this. We can, in general, we can write this critical load or the crippling load formula is this, where this L will be called as effective length. For example, when both the ends are hinged, this L will be equal to small l, and therefore we will get in place of capital L. If we just write the small l, we'll get back the critical load formula for both end hinged. So the effective length basically for the case when the both the ends are hinged, this capital L becomes equal to small l. Right. Now in this L, if I substitute it as 2 times small l, I will get the critical load formula when one end is fixed and the other end is free. So basically what I'm trying to say is this effective length for this case when one end is fixed and the other end is free, for this case this effective length becomes 2L. And similarly this L, if I substitute it as L by 2, I will get this formula, and if I substitute this L as L by root 2, I will get, if this L, if I substitute it as L by root 2, I will get the critical load formula for one end fixed and other end hinged. And that is basically demonstrated here. These are the critical load, these are the effective lengths of one end fixed, one end free, effective length of one end, both the ends hinged, effective length of one end fixed, other end hinged, one end fixed, other end hinged. This I can also write it as L by root 2, which will be 0.7. And if it is L by 2, it tells us that both the ends are fixed. So this is how we have derived the Euler's critical load formula for all these 4 different cases, right? For all these 4 different cases, we have found the critical load formula. In next video, we will see what are the limitations of this Euler's critical load formulas. Although we have derived the critical load formula for all these cases, we will look at what are the limitations of this Euler's critical load formula in our next video.